3 steps to unleashing your mega agent superpower with MAPS coaches Steve Schlueter and Tammi Juengst. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available within 24 hours on the MAPS YouTube channel. We will share the link in the chat momentarily. Currently, everyone's on mute. However, if you do have any questions for your coach, please type them in the chat box. Following the meeting, if you have any additional questions about today's call or our other coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. And that's all for me, coaches. Take it away.
All right. Welcome. Tammi, get us started here. I'm going to pin our videos and we're going to get the show started.
Awesome. Well, welcome, everyone. Happy Monday. We are so excited that you are here. Welcome to 3 Steps to Unleashing Your Superpower. My name is Tammi Juengst. I am a MAPS coach and business partner with Steve Schlueter in Never Ending Referrals. I have been with Keller Williams about 19 years. I'm a MAPS Bold coach and also a KWU Master Faculty Instructor. Steve, share a little bit about Steve.
Hey, thanks for being here, everybody. By the way, I don't know if y'all saw the image with the cape. Tammi was, it was the superpower of the cape. That was too cool. In all seriousness, we've got a really great, time in store for you today with some thoughts on where we are today. My name's Steve Schlueter. I'm a veteran now of 5 shifting markets, I believe it is, Tammi. And like you, I'm a Bold coach. I'm Keller Williams International Master Faculty. I operate 2 market centers and then have a leadership role in a third. Co-coach with you, Never Ending Referrals. Got a great book that I would love for you guys to take an opportunity to take 2.5 hours to take in Rescue Dogs in Real Estate. If you like the message today, you'll love the book. It's a short story on really how to build the kind of business we're going to talk about today. So, Tammi, let's go to work. And so we said there's 3 steps to unleashing their superpower. And I see Tom Catlin out there. Hey, Tom, what's going on, brother? 3 steps to unleashing that superpower. And we're going to dive into, first, there's a mindset strategy to really making this happen. We're going to talk about the DTD2 system that people have probably heard about and maybe don't completely understand it. And we're going to kind of get into that a little bit. And we're going to talk about actually getting in and applying some of this today. So, Tammi, let's get started on the mindset part of this.
Yeah. So the very first thing, if we talk about these 3 steps, the very first step is always going to be around shifting your mindset. And you might be like, what? Why? It's because 90% of our success all begins with how we think. It's only 10% of what we do. And so when we talk about doing things different, it might be that, we've got to shift our mindset from chasing new business all the time to actually succeeding through relationships. I mean, think about this, Steve. If I had a business that had been built on for sale by owners and chasing expired listings, and we went into the market that we've been in for the past 2-3 years, oh my gosh, what could happen to my business? Right? I mean, what might have been rocking and rolling all of a sudden dried up, and you kind of scratch your head and you're like, what happened? And so we've got to shift our mindset from constantly going out there and chasing brand new business to how do we attract people into our business, attract people to working with us? How do we succeed through those relationships? Now, the way that we create that sustainable business and that predictable business, meaning, oh my gosh, I wake up January 1st and I know exactly where my first 50, 75, 100, 200 deals are coming from because I've shifted my business to relationships versus chasing. And yet it all starts with trust. And Steve, I mean, walk us through, how do we establish trust at a really high level with people?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen, Tammi, because I think that the Harvard Business Review said it really well. And the Harvard Business Review, this is where this comes from, is this a little something called the trust triangle. And the article and the research that Harvard did was actually research on how do leaders establish trust with the people that they lead. And these were the conclusions. They said it was these three core issues that were at the foundation of establishing trust. And I actually heard Gary Keller and Jay Papasan discussing this 2 years ago in a leadership meeting. And what really occurred to me in that moment that day is you and I, have been, we've been instructing never ending referrals now for, we built this program 8 years ago, and thousands of people have come through this system. And what I heard that day with Gary and Jay was the trust triangle was exactly what we teach people to do in never ending referrals. It's to deliver on these 3 points. And so what are the 3 points? Well, what Harvard said was that first, it's logic. To develop that trust position, it starts with they believe that the people you lead, or the people in this case in your database, believe that your reasoning and judgment are sound. In other words, they know you know your stuff. When the media out there is throwing out all kinds of stuff on the national news that maybe isn't really reflective of your market, you can go and take a position, support it with facts, put it out to your database, and they're going to trust and believe you because they know that your reasoning and judgment is sound. You've always led them very clearly. Now, on the right side over here, we've got empathy. And the empathy side of this, Tammi, is that, well, it's good that you know real estate. They believe you know your stuff, but at the same time, they want to know that you care about them, that you have their best interest at heart. We're going to talk a little bit about how you do that in a little bit, but it's really about how do I take that relationship, to a deeper level. And then, by the way, Tammi, how do I do it in a way that's authentically me so that they experience the real you? I mean, we've all gotten phone calls. We've gotten contacted from people, and the conversations were salesy. They didn't really feel like it was about me. It felt like it was about somebody else's goal or means to an end. And it didn't feel like I was talking to a real human being. And so these are the 3 points. It's logic, empathy, and authenticity. And when you can deliver those 3 points as part of your game plan, and that's what we teach, then you've got these trust relationships at a really high level, Tammi.
And by the way, I mean, that is the key, right? Is we all have those trusted relationships in our life. And when you think about those trusted relationships, the people that you at your core trust, you count on, don't they actually embody all 3 of those points of the triangle? And it's ultimately because it's not just about being in one transaction with someone. And I think innately we kind of all know that as real estate agents, right? We definitely are looking for more than one transaction. And yet when we're in that one transaction, and maybe this is a new relationship, are we being really intentional about hitting all 3 of those points of the triangle? Because it's ultimately, Steve, I like to call it this, it is about becoming their lifestyle concierge. Right? Think about that. It's not just being their trusted real estate advisor. It's what does it look like for me to be their lifestyle concierge? And by the way, a little bit into our program today, we're going to share with you a script that literally is going to allow you to position yourself as that trusted person and really become the lifestyle concierge, where you are teaching them to reach out to you for far more than real estate. And yet it's a conversation that's going to make you feel really good about reaching out to people. And so that was step number 1 to unleashing your power. We got to work on the mindset and get into the relationships versus being transactional. And it all starts with the trust triangle and becoming that lifestyle concierge. Now, the second step to the system is something that Steve and I call the DTD2, or doing the database 2 system. And by the way, some of you might be familiar with that if you've been through Bold, or maybe you've been through Never Ending Referrals with us in the past, and yet there's far more to it than some of you might actually know. So Steve, why don't you kind of jump in and give us just a little more information? Let's dig into this.
Yeah, so DTD2, Tammi, or doing the database 2, was actually built as a solution to a problem. We found a number of years ago that really only about 3% of agents were having regular routine conversations with their database. And what we concluded after, and it's a gentleman, Tony DeCello, a great coach, and after just a lot of work, determined that the reason was we weren't having a conversation around each other, around a system or a strategy to make sure that we had the all-important critical, conversations with our database. And what we concluded is, well, the first thing we got to do is we got to start creating a conversation amongst ourselves about what is it that we do? What is the system for doing this versus people just say, I got to call my database. Well, yeah, and let's talk about how we make that something that more than 3% of the population do. And now we have thousands of agents, running this system, Tammy. And yet, let me give you all some perspective. I'm going to pull up some slides. And let me get back to this. And so we covered the trust triangle, so logic, that's going to be my marketing, but the empathy piece and the authenticity piece, this happens in the conversations that we have. Susan Scott of Fierce Conversations says the conversation is the relationship. And so if we're going to move towards having a relationship-based business, a value-added business, so that we're connected with them throughout the course of a year in opportunities to add value, then we have to have a system that we follow, Tammy, what's interesting is I'm watching agents today at all levels of production embrace DTD2.
Mm-hmm.
We launched this in my market centers. Tom Catlin, who's there in one of our market centers, we launched all this back in 2014 as an effort to create a conversation. And now, you and I interviewed last week a little gentleman named Dan Moss, and Dan is in New Jersey, and Dan has, built up a business around his database where, last year he was on the Mega Camp stage, credits DTD2 as the foundation of his business, took 161 listings last year, primarily from his database. And then you got David Huffaker. David Huffaker, Middle Tennessee, took Never Ending Referrals 3 times, and to really build the foundation of the database side of his business. And last year did $230 million in production. And by the way, Tammy, in August, they were already at $220 million this year. They did 46% of their business through the database of that $230 million last year. And here's the exciting part of that. For every dollar that David invested in the database, they got a $71 return for every dollar invested. And that's by using these fundamental strategies to stay on, this track of building that trust relationship. I love the way that, we go back. Dave Juengst used to say this. He said, your success in real estate will be in direct proportion to the number of people that when they think of real estate, think of you.
Oh,
and by the way, they're going to think of you because you've built a relationship based upon that triangle. And then I had an opportunity to talk to Danielle Scott here the other day. She's in Bernie, Texas. Do about 90 transactions this year. DTD2 is the foundation of her business. High average sales price, 90 transactions, 500,000, 600,000 plus sales price. You can see what kind of business she's building. And so when I think about this and thousands of agents implementing it, maybe you've had an introduction to it, but there's some nuances to DTD2. And there's nuances to the whole system of building a relationship-based, consumer experience-based business, that when you nail the nuances, this thing really begins to happen. But let's go into DTD2. And as we get into this, in fact, we'll model a script here in a few moments. What I love about this approach is the approach that we teach in Never Ending Referrals, folks, is how do you engage your database with making these phone calls, what we're going to talk about called DTD2, making these phone calls, these connections, so that it is in an absolute rejection-free manner. And it's rejection-free because you're giving more than you're asking for. Doesn't mean that you're not going to ask for an introduction. In fact, we're going to go through a script in a little bit where you're going to ask for an introduction for a business-to-business relationship. And yet, DTD2, let me pull it up for a second. I'm going to pull up this slide. And first, I want to explain exactly what DTD2 is.
Yeah.
So what DTD2 embodies is this. It's simply this process of I'm going to call 2 letters of the alphabet by first letter of the last name each and every week. And each week of the year, and we're going to give you the schedule here before we're done, has its designated letters. So on B&E week, I'm going to call the Bartholomews and the Eliases, and on P&L week, I'm going to call whoever's first name begins with P, begins with L. And we've created themes around this to kind of keep the conversation active. And what you begin to notice is in your market centers or other people around you on your team, now we're having a conversation around each other. So simply, DTD2 is the simple concept of call 2 letters by last name on a schedule that is designated each and every week, and you're doing it with the whole country. This is creating community around doing our most important work. And so, we look at it, so there's 26 letters of the alphabet. You've got 13 2-letter groups. That's DTD2. And by the way, this is the simple explanation of what DTD2 is. The explanation is not any more complicated than call 2 letters, first letter of the alphabet of the last name. And now, Tammy, as we think about this, this whole idea of, and by the way, there's a market center doing it together. They kick off their DTD2, the first 2-letter group of each round is A and W. And look at, they're all celebrating with a root beer float party. Good reason I have ice cream. You're doing my DTD2. So as I get into this, let's talk about some of the nuances. And in fact, I'm going to bring in a video of David Huffaker, the gentleman I mentioned in Middle Tennessee, and I'm going to have him speak to the point that I'm about to make with regard to some of these nuances. Let me see if we can't pull David up here. Okay, here we go.
One of the biggest mistakes that we realized recently, going back to the DTD2s, literally within like the last month, is looking at our time block schedules. A lot of our agents started pushing them to like a Thursday morning call session. And because they're required to have them done by Friday before the team meeting, so they want to get them done on Thursday. And the challenge with that is it's not consistent, right? If you're only calling them once, if you miss them, maybe you're leaving a message. But so we backed up and said, well, really, to me, DTD2 is not lead generation, right? That's follow-up. And so from 11 to 12 every day, we have follow-up scheduled. So to me, we should be calling them on Monday. We should be calling them on Wednesday. We should be calling them on Thursday. And the third time, if we don't reach them, leave a message. But the value is in that conversation. So if I would be mindful of just one thing I've seen us doing that probably doesn't make a ton of sense, trying to get them all in on one day, loading them into a power dialer and knocking them out in 40 minutes isn't what we're after, right? Yeah, that defeats the purpose of it.
It's so true. It goes back to the conversation is the relationship. So the goal is having the conversation, and it's not just to say, oh, check the box, I made the dial, right?
Yeah. Well, Tammy, this goes to probably one of the biggest nuances of DTD2 that we teach in Never Ending Referrals. See, the beauty of what David just described is something that people that I've coached individually around DTD2 came to love. They actually would say, I fell in love with my business again, particularly the database. Yeah. And what they fell in love with is that there was a sense of accomplishment every week. And so every week, if it's A and W week, and I start my calls just like David said, I call them Monday. And let's say I've got 50 in my A and W group that week, Tammy. Guys, I'm probably going to connect with 15 out of 50. And I'm running through dial and I talk to 15. Well, that's 35 conversations I didn't have. And so rather than just keep moving through my database, well, Wednesday, I'm going to take the remaining 35 and I reach out to that remaining 35 and possibly I connect with another 15. Now I've talked to 30 of my 50 rather than 15 of my 50. And then Thursday, maybe in the evening in a different time block, I'm going to reach out to the remaining 20 and maybe I talk to 10 and I've now talked to 40. Think about that. I've talked to 40 of the 50. I've talked to 80% of that DTD2 group that week. And by the way, how did that just compound the likeliness of generating a referral? Or, how did that compound the likelihood that they're going to open my emails because we're in a dialogue? And it makes everything work better. And so it's a little bitty nuance of what it does to impact your business. So Tammi, I know there's some other nuances. We don't have time to go into all of them today,
No.
but what are some of the ones that really you see as impactful?
Yes. Well, I mean, first of all, Steve, I'm an agent first and foremost. And what you just spoke about, I have to piggyback on that for a moment and say that one speaks to me in such a big way, because there are weeks when, let me throw it out to all of you. Have you ever had those weeks where you go home and you just don't know, did I do enough for my business? Because I'm not feeling it right now. And one of the things that we absolutely know is when you communicate with your database and you have those conversations, those 4 conversations a year, you can expect a 10% or better return. And yet I've got to reach out to all of the database. Well, when you follow this is what allows us to know, what, I did the important work this week. Like, I know that I did what I was supposed to do. And that's really cool. One of the other benefits is one of the other things that I think is super, super cool is we integrate it with social media. We literally walk through how do you create custom lists inside of social media where you can specifically post something to a specific group, that 2-letter group, those DTD2 groups that week, and everyone else can't see it. So it really allows you to use social media, not as maybe a black hole like it can be, and yet to be a business building tool, because now I'm using it to power me into conversations and really increase the likelihood that people would pick up the phone. The other thing, and Steve, you and I see this in bold so often, is it keeps you out of something that we call bias. And, we've all done it, right? You look at a name and a number and the phone, or you look at it on the screen in your database and you go, I'm not calling that person. They're not going to want to hear from me, right? I mean, we've all done it. And yet when you subscribe and you follow the DTD2 program and this system, guys, you got to stay out of call bias, right? Because we want to be able to look at our database and know, this is what we have sitting in our database January 1st. Here's our first 50 transactions. Well, that means I talk to everybody that's in that database. So if we're going to stay out of call bias, we call and we let them decide if they're happy to hear from us or if they'll accept our call. One of the things that we've seen is, when we get people to subscribe to staying out of call bias, is I've lost track of how many people would come into a bold room after a call time and say, Tammi, I just called somebody that I never would have called ever. Like we had a bad transaction, or it's been too long, I didn't think they'd remember me. You fill in the blank of whatever we tell ourselves. And oh my gosh, I had a gal in Georgia that came in, called someone. They were happy that she called. It was a $1.4 million listing. They were downsizing and they were buying a $600,000 house. It was $2 million in closed volume because she stayed out of call bias. And it's just another one of those benefits to this system. And then Steve, it's not just about the benefits of it. We actually have to get into action, right? We have to do something with all of this. How do we implement really getting into relationship with the people that are in our database so that we know where our business is coming from and we're not waiting on cold business?
Yeah. Tammi, and just going back to the DTD2 for just a second too, and that is, every time we start down a new journey, we can have fits and starts. And one of the other nuances around DTD2 that I coach people around, Tammy, if the wheels come off this week, if you're in Tampa, Florida, and you got a hurricane bearing down, and they're starting to order evacuations, you're probably not going to get your DTD2 calls in this week.
That's right.
Very possibly. And so if that's the case, and by the way, if any of you are in Florida, we wish you well as the storm comes bearing down, guys. And you may not. And the hazard of getting behind is then sometimes restarting seems overwhelming because I got to catch up. And what we subscribe to in Never Ending Referrals with DTD2 is just begin again. The next week, whatever next week's DTD2 group is, begin there, because the cycle's going to take you back around every 13 weeks. And don't get caught up in being caught behind. And by the way, because it's so easy just to surrender and throw your hands up, or this isn't a learned habit yet, and if you have to work through that learned habit, we're going to give you some tricks when you join us in the program to help you kind of navigate that. But let's talk about implementation. Tammy, the first thing to really get clear about in implementing DTD2, the Never Ending Referral System, the tweaks and what it takes to really build a business where you're able to demonstrate the logic, where you're able to have them experience the empathy and do it authentically. There's a lot, this authentically part is a bit of a challenge. And one of the things that we do actually in lesson 2 of Never Ending Referrals is we go through the nuance of how do I make conversations work for me behaviorally. I'm an extremely high assertive behavioral style. And meaning if I call you up, the whole thought of having small talk conversations of what's going on with Fluffy, what's the vacation, I just want to shoot myself, right? That's just not the way I'm wired. Anybody can relate? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I don't want to have those conversations. And it wasn't till a gentleman I was teaching, he was the Williamson County Board of Realtors in Round Rock, Texas, teaching a class. His name was Howard Brenton, and he talked about almost in passing a person who had positioned herself as a trusted advisor. And my mentor had taught me how important it was to really build a database and be their friend. And of course, my response to her when she said, be everybody's best friend, I said, I got 4 friends. I don't need any more friends. I need buyers and sellers. And yet I heard what she said. And then what I was given that day was the gift that, oh, okay, I have to learn to be, I can't be everybody's best friend. It wouldn't be authentic. I would get in and I would start doing the behavior or the habits of making calls. And because I didn't feel authentic, I didn't stick with it. And when I learned that I could be the trusted advisor and how to do that and how to make those conversations show up, how to build that logic positioning around that, that's when the database began to really work for me. And I was able to go be that person. I could pick up their phone and be the trusted advisor. And boy, Tammy, do they need one right now?
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
I mean, how many of us
need all of you more than ever right now?
Yeah. So Tammy, let's talk about, we said one of the things we wanted to give them today was a strategy for being the concierge and we can even help them grow their database right now. Why don't take us down that path?
Well, your business is also the size of your database as well, right? And so let's say that you're new to the business, or you've just moved and you're not in an area where you grew up and you don't know a lot of people, or maybe you've been in business for a long time and you've been really great at putting everybody you know into your database, and yet it's still not large enough to really fulfill your goals. One of the things that we really want to help you all do, and we're going to give this to you today to make sure that you take it with you and you can implement right away, is how do you grow your database and add quality contacts into the database? And quality not only is, building the relationship, it's also, is it someone that is in a position to give you more business, maybe because of what they do? And so when we think about those quality contacts, the very first thing that comes to mind for me, Steve, are businesses. So, we think of those business to business relationships. Business owners like to support business owners. Think of what business owners have gone through over the last 2 years and how much we really all need to band together to support each other to keep the economic engine going really strong. And so one of our favorite conversations or scripts, whatever you like to call them, that we're going to share with you today is a strategy where you can reach out to your database while giving them value and teaching them that you're going to be their lifestyle concierge while uncovering warm leads, if you will, warm introductions to local business owners. And so, Steve, why don't we walk through that and let's role model this conversation. And everyone, please don't feel like you have to be writing this down. We're going to give this conversation to you in writing so that you can experience it and see how this feels as you're listening in on our conversation.
All right, ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Tammi, Steve Schlueter at Keller Williams. How you doing?
Hey, Steve, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, great. Thanks for taking my call. I'm wanted to reach out, see how you guys were doing. I was working on a little business project I thought you might be able to help me with. And first, before I get into that, I saw you and Bruce took a little trip off to Cabo recently. How was that?
Oh, fabulous as always. Right, it's our favorite place to go.
Yeah, it says, when's the next big vacation coming?
December.
Where's the destination?
This one's Jamaica. Boy, you know how to ask all the right questions, right? Yeah.
There's not a beach that doesn't have Tammy's name on it, right?
That would be true.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, thanks for taking my call, Tammi. And hey, before I'm working on this little project, Tammi. We're as you can imagine, as a real estate agent, I've got people moving to the area constantly from out of the area. And Tammi, they've left behind all their providers for goods and services, and they get here and they realize, oh my gosh, I don't know who to go to for blank. And you fill in the blank. And we realize that, of course, our people in our network, like you, know the best people and who are you really having really great experiences with. And so we're curating something we call our 5-star list. We want to make sure that we help our clients, our friends, the people moving in the area have a great resource. And I'm just curious, in the last, month or so, has there been anybody that you get goods or services from that's just really blown you away? Maybe a 5-star experience.
Yes, actually, it's fall and we've got a great, landscaper that literally today came out and aerated and got our yard all prepared, going into the fall. Just spectacular.
Oh, wow. And what's the name of the company?
It's 3 Trees Landscaping.
3 Trees Landscaping. Well, I'd love to include them in our directory so that we can share that with others. And by the way, do you have a good contact? Who would be the best person for me to contact over there, Tammi?
I do. It's blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she would give me the phone number. And I said, well, Tammi, thanks for sharing that. And by the way, when I call Rick, would it be okay if I mentioned your name, that you had sent us his way?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Hey, well, thanks for helping me with that. I'll make sure to get them included in our directory. And then, there's another area you might be able to help me, Tammi, and that is one of the gaps that we have in our directory of resources is really a CPA, a great CPA. And I wondered if you might have a 5-star introduction in that space you might be able to help us with.
Steve, I had one until you said 5-star. I'm not sure. You know what? I love my CPA, and I don't know that I would say 5-star, maybe 4. So no.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. And so let me ask you, I know in my network, we've got such a vast network, Tammi, that I'll come across a really great CPA or so. And when I do, would you like an introduction, or are you kind of comfortable with where you're at there?
Oh gosh, no, I would love to have a new introduction. Absolutely.
Save all the taxes we can, right?
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's what I'll do, Tammi. As soon as we get this established, I'll tell you how to access it, and so that you can make sure you have access to those tools. And I know that as I work through my network, we'll find that great CPA, and I'll link you up as soon as that happens. Tammi, on another note, I just want you to know you've probably been hearing a lot in the media about the real estate market. It's a little crazy. And the challenge is the national market is not the local market. We hear a lot of national news. We're actually still in a pretty rock solid place here in Mooresville, and yet the market is changing. And I'm here to be a resource if you have questions, because the national media is not always the local reality. And do y'all have any real estate plans here this year that I should be, consulting you about?
We don't have any plans this year, and I sure just appreciate you always being that resource for us, Steve.
You got it, Tammi. Well, thanks again. And if there's anybody we can serve, again, we always appreciate your referrals. And so, by the way, I know that when COVID hit, you guys, you and Bruce were both kind of working from home. Is that still the case, or have you headed back into the office yet?
One of us is still at home, and one of us is back in the office. So, it's divide and conquer.
Who gets the home office?
That'd be me.
No, good for you. You liking it?
I love it. I love it. It's good.
Yeah, the dogs, I imagine they're thrilled with that. I can just imagine.
Yes.
Hey, Tammi, thank you again so much for introducing me to Rick. I'll be reaching out to him. And then when I do have that CPA connection, I'll get back with you and create an introduction for you there at that time. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Steve. Good to hear from you.
All right. Take care, Tammi.
You too.
All right, guys. That's the 5-star conversation. And by the way, Tammi, that was probably 5 minutes tops, 5, 6. It's an easy conversation.
Yeah.
And what are some of y'all's takeaways? Put it in the chat. What did you take away from that dialogue that Tammi and I had? And Tammi, chunk it down for us. Let's debrief that.
Well, I mean, I will say that is by far one of my absolute favorite conversations to have with the database. Everyone, you can use that conversation twice a year. So when I break that down, I think about this. You are calling to work on something for them and your network, and it's not real estate related. I'm not calling and asking about real estate. So that's number one. Number two, when I had a service provider or a business to share with Steve, he asked me for their name. And so now when I call that business owner, I'm not cold calling a business. I'm calling because one of their customers referred them to me, and I'm going to add them to my network free of charge, by the way, simply because we want to be a resource for both our clients as well as the community. And the other thing, when I think about that also is, excuse me, think about the relationship equity that just occurred between Rick and myself. Mm-hmm. I call Rick, and Rick is like, oh my gosh, my client Tammi is the bomb. She just connected me to a real estate agent. And so that's really cool. Now, Steve, there's something else that you love about it when you asked about the CPA.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You just covered attribute, and here's the interesting part. So now, as I dive into my network, I'm going to come across a great 5-star CPA. In fact, I might come across 2 or 3 great 5-star CPAs, because I'm not going to stop when I get just one.
No,
because half the beauty, because I might get that 5-star CPA introduction 30 calls in, and I may only have 2 people that need a 5-star CPA. So I'm going to keep asking, because the beauty is in discovering the people that have the need, so I can be a connector.
That's right.
And so now I get to the place where I've got maybe 15 people that would like a 5-star, CPA introduction, and I found 3 5-star CPAs. Tammi, what happens when I reach out to the CPA and I go with potential referrals in hand, introductions for the CPA to people that raised their hand and said, yes, introduce me. And that you become the bestest friend of that CPA.
That's
and
right.
By the way, and I don't, even if they've got other real estate agent relationships, I don't need to be in the number 1 position. I do know that I can build the number 2 position. And if I can get the number 2 position in time, I will have the number 1 position, unless that agent is their mom, son, or daughter. So, and yet I've gotten referrals from somebody whose mom was a real estate agent. So that was my lender. So it depends on the nature of the relationship. When that kind of goodwill is built there, Tammi, amazing things happen. And so, Tammi, running this gambit, if this strategy, if you will, you can add high quality business relationships to your database. And, of course, in Never Ending Referrals, we go through a whole session on the conversations to have with the business owners, how to actually become their personal real estate agent. How do you build all that up? And then, by the way, how do you now, because businesses like us, Tammi, they have a database. And how do I extend my reach now through other business owners and their database? This is one of the big possibilities of building a business-to-business network. It just has, here we are, professional people, service companies that are already, they have databases, and we can find reciprocities or places to work together to really grow our mutual businesses and opportunities. Tammi, I guess the other implementation thing is the market's changing. And one of the things that we do each quarter at Never Ending Referrals for our members, and we'll talk about how you can become a member here in just a moment, is we develop market of the moment conversations and scripts. What is the conversation that's the value add right now, that's adding value, coming from contribution, that will never get you rejected, unless you're dealing with a crazy person. There are a couple of crazies out there, but just, unless you're dealing with a crazy person, you're coming from contribution, as we say. Tammi, we're talking about some of the dialogues that we're going to be introducing, here for the fourth quarter. Talk about this one.
Oh, my conversation that should be dusted off right now is, so a couple of things, everyone. We bring conversations that you can certainly have with your database, because we're very, very database centered. And yet we're also always here to partner with you to help you in other aspects of your business. And the thing that right now we should be dusting off is on page 153 of Shift. And it's this particular diagram, if you can all see my screen. And it's really a great conversation around what sellers are feeling as the market is changing. I mean, it's, out of the market, no man's land, and on the market, or in the market. And the houses that sell as things shift, and I'm not going to teach you the conversation. However, over here, the ones that sell are the ones that are in the very center in the market. And here's the short of it all. The houses that are in no man's land are in the scariest place of all. And it's scary because they're getting showings. And so they don't feel like there's anything wrong. And if we don't know how to have that conversation going into a market that is shifting, then we end up with overpriced listings or very unhappy sellers. And so we're going to walk through those conversations as the market is changing. And then Steve, we're also, I guess, in 2 weeks, in one of our sessions, we're going to walk you through the pricing conversation. Everyone in our community will be learning how to have those conversations so that, 97% of the time you're pricing it right and you're getting it sold, right? It's not about carrying listings. We don't want to collect listings. We just want to get the listings, earn the listings, and sell them quickly and have really satisfied, happy people.
Yeah.
And
so one thing we want to do is share with you the opportunity to be part of our community and just what that is. And so I'll just kind of pull up a few slides here real quick. And now, Never Ending Referrals, we begin again. Our next live session is Monday. And we go live the first 3 Mondays of each month at noon Central Time. We kick off the first 30 minutes with an interview, like you saw David Huffaker. We had Dan Moss last week. And the first session of each month is KT Temple, our tech guru, who gives us the latest in tech, and not just Command, but it's all things that really serve our database. And so, in fact, Megan, if you'll put the overview that these guys see here into the chat, this will give you kind of the 8 lessons of Never Ending Referrals, kind of an outline of what you can expect when you join us on the journey with Never Ending Referrals. I mentioned that each and every week we've got the interviews that take you right through how to build a powerful relationship based business. And of course, the investment to be part of our community is $39 a month. It's a minimum 5-month enrollment. Megan, if you'll put the direct link to the enrollment in the chat, and then also the link to the 5-star conversation and the DTD2 schedule in the chat. We go live again on Monday. We'd love for you to be our guest and come join us in the community and drive your database and drive your network to the next level. Tammi, let's put a bow tie on the day. What we learn, and we've got the link there in the chat if you'd like to join our community at $39 a month and get those market of the moment scripts and tools and resources, and figure out the nuances of operating your database at the extreme highest level. And here's the thing, Tammi, it's not difficult. It takes understanding the nuances and the refinement so that you can get that 10% return on your database.
Yeah, that's right. This is honestly about building a business that, man, when you wake up in the morning, instead of like your feet hitting the floor and you're like, it's about being excited, right? It is, man, I get to like serve people. And this is so awesome. And when your phone rings or when people pick up the phone and they're excited to hear from you, like you fall in love with this business that, maybe you're new to the business and you love it, or maybe you've been in the business for 20 years and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. Another market, another shift. No, I mean, this is the market that you've been waiting for. This is how you get all excited all over again. And it's fun. This makes real estate fun. And when I think about relationship businesses, people who succeed through the database, I go back to Mega Camp and whether you tuned in or you attended in person, one of the things that you saw was they showed you how many different ways there are to succeed through a relationship with your database. There wasn't anybody up there that wasn't succeeding through their database. They were succeeding in different ways. And so we do the same thing. We're going to bring you all those different ways that you can build your relationship-based business with your database, and one that's authentic and genuine to you, right? There's so many different ways to do this business, and it's not all one particular way. It's doing what comes natural for you and that you like to do. And that's what it's really about.
Yeah, it looks like that landing page for registration was the wrong link. Megan's fixing that right now. What questions do you guys have that we can answer for you? Would love to hear your comments, have you chime in with thoughts, maybe opportunities you see in the business of your database. Who's got a question? Raise your virtual hand. Go ahead, Marietta.
Hi, thank you. So much for having this. So a training or community for a brand new agent, an experienced agent, or really anyone?
Yes.
So all of it. Got it.
It is all of it. I think of David Huffaker taking this 3 times. And by the way, he still is the fastest agent to get to 100 million in production, and did it in under 5 years. And took it 3 times and still comes back and visits. And so it's repetition is the mother of skill. And if you're a new agent, great, you get to build it the right way from the very beginning and get in business for a while, and you'd like to learn some different ways to refine it, then this is for you too.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm a team leader, so that's why I was asking. And I sent you a private message, Tammi.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Taylor.
How's it going? Thank you guys for doing this. Wanted to ask, you had mentioned in the conversation to Tammi, you said, I'll let you know and get you access to these vendors, basically. Mm-hmm. What program are you doing to build that out on? And then what are you doing to send it to them? Are you doing any type of lead capture, anything you can see on the back end who's utilizing that list? I was just curious if you had details on that.
You can lead to that. I mean, you can put it on a page where they, register to access it. And of course, now Keller Williams sites have registration that you can put in place. I tell you, most people actually just simply put it on a Google sheet and they've got the links, the live links to get through to people, because they're not worried about registration because it's really part of their community that they already have a relationship with. And that's who they're attempting to serve. In fact, I'll put an example in the chat. If you'll give me just a minute, I'll grab an example and put it in the chat for you guys. Okay. Stand by. Tammy, go ahead and
Yes. All right. What other questions do we have?
feel free to raise your hand, and I'm going to grab.
Oh, these beautiful people. Angela. I see Angela. I haven't seen Angela forever. She's like, oh, she's calling me out. Awesome.
Sorry, I was just scratching my forehead.
You're good. Good to see you. Any more questions? Anything we can help you with? I'll share.
Question. Hello, my name is Ken Ruiz, and I just logged on. I'm going to get my video going on.
Oh, hey, Ken.
And I'm new per se. However, my struggle is buying into the command system. I just struggle with it. Maybe you guys have an assistant that could do it for me, but it's just complicated. So I'm like, do I stick with command? Do I, do Boomtown? So you just mentioned $100 million agent or something like that. My question is he using command as a database?
Well, and that's a great question, Ken. And I'll share that, we're never attached to particularly, what CRM you're using. If you are using one that you're comfortable with and you like, the best one to use is always going to be the one that you find the easiest to use and you'll use it. Right. I mean, honestly, I know agents who succeed using card files. So, go back total old school. It really is all about what works for you and not getting bogged down in something that renders you unable to move forward. So, yes, we do in our program, we do have training around command, and yet it also applies to things outside of command. I mean, our last tech session was all around Google. Running ads around a new Google platform that really people don't know about yet, right? And so no, it's not specific to command.
I appreciate that response. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, the system doesn't require you to run command, and of course, Marietta just put a comment on that national growth call. $190 million producer team of 6 using command, and and that may be. We all find our comfort zone in certain technology, and wherever that is. We had Dan Moss on last week, and he used his top producer. And he's taken all the DTD2 things of this nature, applied it. So the things that are tech related, you can apply to any platform as far as our system goes.
And then one last question, since I was late, you just submitted the registration form. That's why I lost you when you said $39. Can you just quickly explain that again?
Sure. Yeah. So the $39 a month gives you access to our network. And each Monday, the first 3 Mondays of the month, we have an interview or tech lesson in the first 30 minutes, followed by one of the core lessons of Never Ending Referrals. There's 8 core lessons that was in the overview sheet that we showed earlier. Megan, why don't you put that overview back in there again for Kenneth's access in case he wasn't able to get that earlier. There it is right there. And so each session is an interview, and we go deep dive into learning the nuances like succeeding through your behavior, conversations that work. How do you become the trusted advisor and deliver on those logic points, which was something we talked about earlier. So Kenneth, it's $39 a month, minimum 5 months, gets you our 3 webinars. Plus we send out extras, extra interviews, things of that nature for you as well.
Steve, can you share the other thing that you all would have access to, and probably is one of the reasons we've had people with us for over 2 years, is everything that we do when Steve and I do those live lessons after that 30-minute interview, everything goes on to a 24/7 on-demand platform that you have access to. So when you join, there literally are hundreds of videos on there of previous lessons, all the interviews that we've done with people that are just knocking it out of the park in our company. And you have access to that 24/7. We record everything that we do, and it all gets put onto that portal. So yeah, Steve, if you could share that portal It's a really, really robust library of resources for you. And if you have a team, it's great for your teams to come in and do some training around that as well.
Megan, if you could pull it up on your end, I'm having trouble getting logged in.
So Tammi, this never-ending referrals, it says, are you ready to master your #1 business asset? Actually, it's your data bank, right? That's what I remember when
Your
I
data bank, you betcha.
data bank.
That's it.
And I just got on this just by a blessing, I guess. Session #1, setting the foundation. So it is, I remember E to P, which was in bold. I took bold last May. So
awesome.
It doesn't matter, like you're saying, if I use command or any other. The only one I'm using now is Boomtown, and it seems to be much user friendly than command. And then who are you being for your database? So you're saying that we're going to have these 8 sessions.
So the 8 lessons Steve and I do live so that we can dig deep. You can ask questions. The market changes. So, you know, these lessons, the conversations that we would have brought 6 months ago are different now. The principles around database never change. The conversations that you have with the database do based on what's going on. And so we're always going to be bringing those latest and greatest conversations where you really are bringing value to people into those lessons. In addition to that, all of those interviews that we've done. So remember, the first 3 Mondays of every month, the first 30 minutes are us interviewing, and we really bring on some people that are just mind-blowing, the businesses that they do, and then how simple they make things, or these little tips and tricks, and they bring them and they share all of those things, which is really the beauty of our company, right? Is just that ability. And so all of those are also housed on that portal, and you'll see all of those. Some of them are in the archives because we can only keep so many on that front page. And then the most impactful ones we've brought back and we've tagged them and put them at the top so that you have access to those all over again.
Yeah, I believe y'all are seeing our, the portal right now. And yeah, we have the latest live recordings, and then we have just an on-demand section of pre-recorded that we did of the fundamentals that's available for you.
Okay.
So guys, I trust you'll join us on the journey. Any other questions or thoughts? Tom, trust you're doing well, man. You stay out of trouble.
Every Monday at noon?
Every Monday at noon Central.
Yep. Yeah. First 3 Mondays of the month. We do product development on the 4th Monday. So yeah. Yeah.
And again, anything you miss is recorded and uploaded to the portal. And then, you know what, just time block it on your calendar so that you watch it at a time that works better.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being with us today, guys. We really appreciate it. Go out and test out a little DTD2, see what happens.
That's right. Nice to see you all. Take care.
How do you print this page? Oh boy, the registration. Okay, let's see here.
What are you trying to do, Ken?
Oh, I'd like to register fast track coaching. Never. I'm here. Is that? Oh, that's just a live page there. Okay.
Click on that HTTP KWRI Chargeify link that MD put in there. Scroll up in the chat.
Okay, hang on a second. I just lost you. Okay, go up in the chat.
From 1252, you'll see 3 different messages from
1252. How to join us? Okay.
Yep. Click that link, and it'll take you directly to the.
Okay. I don't have to print. Okay, I got you. Let me see.
No, it's all online.
Okay. Which it should all be, right? Okay.
Yes.
Great. And if we have any questions before that Monday, are we able to contact you, and how?
Here, I'll put it in the chat for you.
Oh, I love seeing so many familiar names on here. How fun.
That info email will get you directly to me, Kenneth, and if I can't answer it, I can ask Tammi or Steve.
Okay, info. Okay, great. All right. Great. All right. Have a blessed week, guys.
You too, Ken. Everybody else. Megan, thank you.
Welcome.